how you spend time away from medicine, I think, dictates the quality of your life and the quantity in your bank accounts.
This is the greatest return on investment you could ever think of. Investing in yourself, investing in someone who will guide you through these steps to get to places that you never even thought were possible in your life.
What if you could reclaim hours of free time each week, create legacy building wealth, and devote more energy to your passion projects without giving up on your career as a life-saving MD? Dr. Vikram Raya is a functional cardiologist, high-performance coach, and real estate expert, is here to give you the tools, strategies, and solutions you need to transform your life, unlock your limitless potential, and achieve greatness, all while freeing up your precious time. Welcome to Limitless MD. Let's dive in.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Limitless MD. I'm your host, Vikram Rai, and today I have another amazing interview with our guest who literally, his interview got so many downloads, so many reviews. You guys wanted him back. So this is part 2 of my interview with my good friend, client, and absolute orthopedic badass, David Hergan. David, welcome to the show.
Hey, Vic, thanks for having me again.
Guys, if you don't remember, David Hergan is a board-certified orthopedic surgeon. He is the president of his group. He is highly regarded as one of the top doctors who understands the private equity space. And he develops ground-up medical office. And just in case that was not enough, he's pioneering regenerative medicine in his huge orthopedic practice in Connecticut. And super dad, athlete, and travel extraordinaire. So, man, how do you do it all sometimes, David?
Vic, there's not enough hours in the day, right? I try to kind of model my life on Vikram Raya, get it all done, compartmentalize your days, use every minute wisely, and be good to people you come in contact with, and things, over time, consistency, things fall in place. Trying to live every moment like it's my last.
I love that. I love that. But let's be honest. I'm going to cut through the BS of most podcast interviews, and we're going to get to the juice and the mojo of really what makes David David. So look, congrats. I think you're 47. You look like in your early 40s. Fantastic. But let me ask you this. What was your game plan at age 40 as a physician? I mean, you're probably playing the typical orthopedic ladder that most people play, right? You're trying to optimize your practice. You're trying to increase income. You're trying to balance work life. You're thinking like give more hours to boards and different organizations within the ortho world. Tell me about that, and tell me about what shifted.
Yeah, I think you get put on these railroad tracks early on in your career when you decide to go into medicine, right? And you have blinders on, and your focus is this area of training takes a ton of focus, and you really have to hunker down and spend a lot of hours to get to the point in your field where you're the master of what you do. And I think the majority of us want to be extremely successful and at the top of our field, medical field, whatever that subspecialty may be. And when you're early mid-career, I think for the vast majority of us, that's all we're thinking about. You have a family, and then you start thinking, okay, what's the next few years going to look like? You start looking at the leaders in your field, and anyone who's smart kind of models their life or their practice comparatively against people who you want to be like, and how you see yourself being in 5-10 years. And at that time, my mindset was, okay, I've got to save a certain amount of money. I've got to achieve certain goals within my medical field, within my practice. I knew I kind of wanted to have leadership roles. I felt like I was good in those roles. I felt like my peers would nominate me to help lead them, and putting away money, putting money in the market, getting involved in index funds, hoping to hear certain tips for certain people and financially, and then kind of hope in 15, 20 years, I'm still happy at doing what I do, and can retire with enough money to travel and and live a life how I want to live, even when I'm not in medicine anymore.
Okay,
I
so
think,
when did you go off the railroad tracks, using your own analogy here? When did you decide to say, hey, look, that's what probably 80 to 90% of all Orthodox do in this United States. I'm going to be one of the top 3% that are going to be doing something different. I'm sure it was not a conscious decision, or was it?
well, you start to, you get older, you get wiser, and you look around and you realize, wait a minute, these people who I think I want to be like, I'm not sure they're so happy with their lives. Um, I've always been interested in doing other things, Vic. I've never really identified myself or my own uh, being or as a physician and a physician only. I feel like that's such a limiting mindset to have. Um, I feel like I can do so many other things with my life, and I've always been interested in doing other things. And when I look at some of these older physicians, I'm thinking, wow, this guy's in his 60s or even 70s, and their life is still dictated by every 10-minute office visits 3 times a week, and being in the operating room a couple other days a week. Um, my time is limited. I would love to learn about other things. You talk to other friends who you grew up with, or you were in training with, or in college with, who are doing really incredible things. And I kind of realized, wait a minute, there are so many other ways to make a living. Number one, there are so many other exciting things to explore. And I kind of have this internal drive and this constant thirst for knowledge and new experiences, and particularly challenges. So kind of mid-career, I realized, wow, I'm doing incredibly well in what I do. I've kind of reached the pinnacle in surgical skills, new procedures. Um, I want new challenges. I want to see how other people make money. And I really felt like um, there are so many other ways to make a good living, or to achieve financial freedom without having a patient schedule 5 days a week.
Okay, so let's do this. I want to, the people who listen to this podcast are like the same people who are part of our limitless tribe, as you know, David. These are hungry physicians who want to become the new breed of physicians. They want to become limitless physicians. They want to have entrepreneurship. They want to have multiple streams of income. They want to potentially practice medicine on their terms. They want to break the handcuffs. They want to make a dent in the universe of something meaningful, and they still want to enjoy their passions, hobbies, and travel all in one breath, right?
We
But
want it all.
we want it all, and we don't want to compromise. So, look, if you could speak to the 38-year-old surgeon or internal medicine doctor who's listening to this podcast and is like, yeah, it's lucky for you, David. You already accomplished it all, so you probably had the money or the wherewithal to then go shift or do whatever else you ended up doing. I'm still stuck in the rat race. I'm still stuck in I have to make money. I'm the main earner in my family. Or, hey, look, if I don't do this, I lose my partnership. What do you say to them? What are the first steps they can potentially take?
So I think there is always more time in your day. I think with my group of mentors, you realize, number one, you have to use your time away from medicine extremely wisely. You have to. I
Let's
would
wait.
tell
Let's say
that
that again. So using your time when you're not in the medical practice is key. So
it's huge, because we want to, quote unquote, decompress. We want to relax, and relaxing is great, and it's important to relax, but you really need to learn how to relax efficiently and realize your time away from medicine is just as or even more valuable than what you're doing while you're in medicine. And in order to increase that time, you need to maximize the efficiency of what you're doing while you're practicing medicine. And that always comes down to how you set up your schedule. Maybe you limit a half day a week and compress your schedule into 4 days or 4.5 days with accomplishing the same things. And that's not easy to do without help, right? So people are afraid to ask for help. That's a big part. People are afraid to pay a little extra money to get that help. That's a mistake. You have to invest in yourself, and investing in your time is crucial to do this and to achieve other things. You have to be an avid reader. You have to use your time at night not to be watching whatever news channel and getting yourself all worked up about things you can't control in the political world. Or you have to read, and you have to read about what other people are doing and educate yourself. And that includes on weekends or on your quote unquote vacations, going to conferences, networking with people who are doing amazing things, and putting yourself out there. I think a big part of what we do, we get comfortable in what we do, and then we're not willing to be uncomfortable, right? So this emotional flexibility, or what they call psychological flexibility, of how to become comfortable with uncertainty and kind of tolerance to ambiguity in our lives, you will not learn if you do not fail. So it's kind of pushing yourself to get in those situations, get in rooms with people, network, so that your whole opportunities just open up. And it's not going to happen in 1 year or even 2 years, but the more you do it, the more consistent you are with these kinds of things, reading, networking, spending money to get help in your medical practice to open up your lives outside, investing in people like mentors who want to help you. It's tough to think, wow. And I've talked to a lot of people who are on the fence about doing this, and I try to encourage them, hey, this is the greatest return on investment you could ever think of. Investing in yourself, investing in someone who will guide you through these steps to get to places that you never even thought were possible in your life.
Okay. You just said some of the most core principles that I think a 35, 38-year-old mid-career or early career physician needs to have a brain tattoo, put on their head here. So it's how you spend time away from medicine, I think, dictates the quality of your life and the quantity in your bank accounts. I think that's it.
Yeah,
How you spend time away from medicine is the
well said.
differentiator between a limitless physician and a frustrated physician, right?
And by the way,
Yeah.
this is not anti physician practice. I love what I do, but I will tell the listeners I love what I do more now, since I've engaged in these things starting 4 years ago,
Yeah.
which I wish I would have done 10 years ago. And part of that is your mindset. A big part of that is health, vitality, and eliminating, right? Like addition by subtraction. You have to look around you. You have to take account and write down, how am I spending my time? Who am I spending it with? Are these people helping me grow or get to where I want to be? So you have to eliminate things. You have to maximize your ability to gain energy, because there's so much to do that if you don't have vitality and energy, it's going to be tough to achieve those things. And that's by, eliminating a lot of the things that we're just kind of used to doing on the weekends at night.
Yes. Okay. So how you spend time away from medicine, you talked about efficiency, you talked about active recovery versus passive recovery. You talked about becoming a master of time by becoming a master of your schedule. Change your vocabulary, right? How you speak. You can have a transformational vocabulary, but also learn to have a business jargon. Can you speak on EBITDA? Can you speak on profit and losses? And one of the most powerful questions I'm going to ask you before, as we wrap up the interview, is going to be, you're going to give me a game plan that any physician can follow to have a $10 million net worth with using only medical options as a way to get there. And that's something you're on track to do or have already done. So we'll talk about that in a second. But it's proximity, right? Proximity is power. So how many non-medical conferences are you going to? You can still practice medicine full-time or even part-time, but are you learning about tax optimization? Are you learning about how to hire employees? Are you learning how to scale and grow your company or business? Or are you an intrapreneur in someone else's clinic and you're adding so much value, they give you stock options, they raise you up in that clinic? Or are you owned by some company or corporation like in private equity, but now they tap you as being the head or the face of that clinic or that place? So you've done all these things, and so that is really powerful. And you talk about uncomfortable and ambiguity tolerance, and I think all of this is encompassed by what I call physician bravery training. You were brave to get into medical school. You were brave to get into your residency and your fellowship, but then we started getting complacent. And so you get back into being uncomfortable by starting to become practicing courage. And you learn to leverage, right? There's a couple of forms of leverage that you use, David, in your life. You've learned to use capital. You've learned to use, people, employees, team members. You've learned to use, technology, right? AI and just, marketing, all that stuff, and media. Like you're starting to get out there. I mean, that's what we're doing right now. We're on a podcast. We're doing media. So using these levers can put one input equals 10 outputs versus one input equals one output. And then you said essentially you're talking about an ROI into yourself is one of the best ROIs, or investing in yourself is the best ROI. That's exactly what Warren Buffett says. He says investing in yourself is a 30x ROI. So that is amazing, man. It's awesome. So
you have a skill to unpack these things, Vic, that I think your listeners benefit from daily. It's you just encompass what I was trying to say a lot better than how I said it.
No. This is okay. So look, I've sort of coined you as a hyper growth MD, and you really are out there helping physicians, friends, colleagues, and people really maximize their opportunity to, as a physician, to live that magnificent life. So listen, a lot of physicians want to be millionaires, and in my opinion, that's not enough. Single digit millionaires still clip coupons. They feel poor, they feel broke, and with taxes and inflation and everything else going on, I suggest everyone at least attain an 8-figure net worth. So let's call it 10 million. So I think that's very doable for most physicians because of their high income that they earn and the network they're around and the opportunities that are available. So if you could guide maybe these doctors now in their 40s, and maybe they want to retire by 50 and have that $10 million net worth. And they don't want to leave medicine, but they are open to things within the medical realm, such as medical office and all the other stuff we talked about. Can you give them some guidance on how to maybe construct that kind of net worth or that kind of cash flow?
I think it's going to be different per the individual. I can share some things that I know about, but I think it's important for everyone to find their kind of zone of genius, right? What they think, how they think they could provide value the most. But what I would say is that there are multiple ways to do this. It doesn't seem like it when your head is down and you're grinding in a daily medical practice. But what we don't realize sometimes as early and mid-career physicians is that there are very few people who could achieve what we've achieved so far with not just the intelligence, but the drive and grit that we have as physicians. And I think what we need to realize is we have the ability to leverage those skills and those abilities into other things to create other streams of income. There are ways in real estate. I think it's important. One of the ways some ways that I think are important. We are W-2 earners. We are maximally affected by how our tax system is set up. The smart physicians create other means of income to try to decrease their tax liability. I think a very effective way to do that is through real estate. I personally have leveraged my healthcare knowledge into medical office space development, which has been extremely satisfying and lucrative. And these are ways that we can provide value. And it started with looking at spreadsheets, learning how to read a profit loss statement, and where the biggest drain of monthly cash is in my medical office space. And then taking a leap, right? Getting some partners to agree with you and look at numbers, and then taking a leap together and realizing the first leap is not going to be perfect. But like I said, in order to learn, you have to fail. But after 2, 3, 4, and then now learning the language, now meeting with architectural review boards and wetlands committees in different towns and developing relationships with engineers and development companies, and now partnering with a development construction company in our state, and now starting to do things out of state. I mean, everything begets the next move, and you have to look at it kind of like staying in it. They're going to be failures. You're going to learn, and not to kind of jump off that bus as soon as you kind of meet some adversity. I think
So medical office could be a good starting point for a lot of physicians. Now, if you're renting, this may be the next move for you where, hey, you can evaluate, should I buy the place where I'm at, or can I look for my next place? Should I, instead of renting, should I go ahead and buy if you need to shift to a larger space? So that's awesome. And then you're not only doing it for yourself, but now you're just trying to do it for others and make it more of a separate vertical. Let's talk about concierge medicine, wellness, cash-based practices, and in your case, for ortho, that was regenerative medicine. Can you sort of unpack the thought process on that?
this is patient driven mostly. So if you kind of switch your mind into physician only mindset and you switch to this kind of entrepreneurial mindset and you look for opportunities, they jump out at you. So you listen to what your patients are asking for, and I think this is how this started in my field. There's been talk about orthobiologics or injectables for regenerative medicine in the orthopedic space for 10 plus years. I'm convinced this is kind of the new frontier of medicine, and the patients demanded. So you kind of look at, okay, some of my surgical patients are the happiest people I know, but there's this gap of treatment in patients who aren't really great surgical indicated for surgery, but are not improving with the non-surgical treatments we've had, and they're asking for more. So again, that takes time outside of medicine to research, see what other people are doing, learn for myself, trial and error. And I realized that things like platelet-rich plasma or bone marrow injections, these are going to change how medicine, I'm convinced, is practiced. And there's more and more good evidence-based randomized studies showing how these kinds of things are significantly more effective than a steroid or cortisone shot or a hyaluronic acid shot for things like degenerative joint disease of the knee, shoulder, hip, or chronic tendon injuries. And this gives people hope. It gives them improvement of their dysfunction and pain, and everybody wins. And you can leverage what you know in healthcare in this way to create this kind of concierge practice where people are begging to get this treatment. But if you stay kind of focused in only what your area is, you kind of eliminate these other opportunities. So this has become a huge part of what I do. It's kind of how you talk to your patients. You develop a greater relationship with your patients, being able to offer them this kind of different lines of treatment, and it kind of creates more excitement in your daily life. So it's been great for me. I'm bringing my other colleagues into it. We're developing a new orthobiologic space in the new medical office space we're building now, and it's just kind of growing month over month.
And I guess, another vertical to consider is, your involvement in sort of private equity. That word has become sort of a buzzword in the medical space for the last, call it 5, 10, maybe even 15 years. First of all, why is private equity interested in us doctors? Number two, how can a physician gain some knowledge and potentially utilize this, this inflection point in business and medicine and potentially benefit?
I think they're interested in us because we are. They're interested in businesses that create profit ultimately. So if and healthcare is one of them, and healthcare is kind of moving to the forefront of what they're interested in, particularly surgical subspecialties that have kind of ancillary income and passive income with things like physical therapy or surgical centers, ambulatory surgical centers, and just overall profitable business where you're doing things like orthobiologic injections or durable medical equipment like bracing. And there's a lot of fragmentation in the medical field with a lot of different private practices. So they see it as a way to, merge different practices together, create economies of scale. And there's a lot of opportunities out there. Physicians are not good business people, and they want to capitalize on that. A way to and I've done talks, and we're doing some writing on this too about how physicians can kind of capitalize on these opportunities because, we're the worker bees, and it's fine, but we want to be in those seats where we're making the business decisions too. And that's always my goal. And if you come armed with a lot of that knowledge to the table and you know exactly what these guys are looking for, everybody benefits. You can be valuable to the private equity group and the service organization that's going to be working directly with you. And when you have leadership roles on these boards, a whole nother life, you get to see behind the curtain about how these transactions are being done. But I think there's actually, Vic, not a lot of great ways to learn about how this is happening. I learned, the hard way with myself and our own group. Now I've been fortunate enough to be chosen as the chief medical officer of our MSO and our division of our orthopedic group. And I've learned so much in the last 2 years, which is why I want to kind of working on a white paper and a book to kind of help other physicians avoid and kind of maximize their tax savings, position their practices so that they can maximize what they're getting when there's a liquidity event, and then position themselves appropriately with employment contracts, post-transaction close. There's just so much to learn. I could talk about this for 3 hours, but I think I would just say I'd be happy to speak to anybody on this. I speak to a lot of people about this, and I'm excited to get this book out. I think it'll help.
That's awesome. Look, you've just deployed a ton of knowledge on these guys. It's amazing, and I'm sure the listeners are really appreciative. What are sort of the top 2 or 3 pieces of parting advice you have for doctors, and maybe potentially book recommendations or other things you recommend for them? And then lastly, we'll talk about how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, I think the best parting advice is that you want to keep as you go through this whole life cycle of being a physician, it's really easy to get bogged down. I would say focus on your health. You need time for yourself to keep your mental strength and your energy, and do whatever it takes. I think sleep is very underappreciated, particularly in our field. And we've been taught to kind of function with very little sleep. I think you realize how much more you can get done in a day when you have a good night's rest. And in order to get a good night's rest, it's important, that comes down to your social interactions. That comes down to what you're consuming or putting in your body, and how you take care of yourself with exercise. So it seems like a lot to get in a day, but it matters. The little things matter. And I would secondly say we're social beings. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't reach out to others and connect. And those connections and the networks, they're not just kind of reinvigorating. They will open doors for you. So reach out for help, get involved with a coach or a mentor, reach out to others in your own practice, different practices, and take care of your mind and your body, and family is always number one.
That's awesome, guys. I've been able to witness David Hergan's, what I call his second surge, as he forms himself to become a new breed of doctor, this entrepreneurial, highly intelligent and much more sophisticated physician who's able to really achieve all the dreams. But whenever I ask him, he always says, it's mindset, vitality, and family. Those are the 3 core principles I think that drive a lot of us. And so try to remember those things. And then, David, when the book comes out, when you have the white paper, when you have any kind of opportunities to work with you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
I'm just going to give out my email, dhergan@gmail.com. That's DHERGAN@gmail.com. I've helped other physicians kind of get involved in other investments that can kind of open up a lot of opportunities. I'm happy to talk to anybody about medical office space or private equity or orthobiologics or really anything in medicine. I love connecting, and I appreciate you having me on, Vic. It's always fun chatting with you.
Absolutely. Is davidherganmd.com a good place as well?
That's it. Yep, that's the website that you can reach me through also.
Okay, davidherganmd.com, guys, another place. All right, you got the information, you got the goods downloaded from our good friend David Hergan. Use them, maximize your life, and until next time, be phenomenal.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Limitless MD. If you found value from this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend and let me know by leaving a review. For more information, make sure you check out the links in the show notes below or simply visit vikramraya.com. Until next time, be phenomenal.